So let's start with our receptivity prayer. I am open to the evolution of my soul. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. My next step is here and now. And so it is. You notice I got this thing up here this week. It was because I have some notes, and I'll be getting to why I have notes in a little bit. But it's not an ongoing thing. I just needed them for this week. How love wins. Love wins. God, I was thinking about this all week, how many different ways I've heard people talk about love, and so many times in ways that don't make any sense to me at all. Because for me, love is not a feeling, it is an expression. It is how we can express ourselves in the world. When we go for love being a feeling, then it's something we're trying to get. We want to feel that way. We want to feel love. But when we are in expression of love, stuff shows up like this and what the walls look like. And what I notice is in New Age, not to be confused with New Thought, there's this whole thing around following your bliss and the monies will follow. Well, here's the thing about bliss that anyone who has been in a long-term relationship knows. That if what you did was simply follow your bliss, you would have left after the honeymoon period. That it's not so blissful all the time to be in a long-term relationship, but the love is constantly expressed. What I notice about my relationship with Ash is that even when we're mad at each other, we still love each other. The love doesn't go away. It doesn't feel blissful all the time. It feels blissful a lot of the time, but not all the time. But the love is there. So there's a real mistake here about following your bliss. You know, we make these movies. And in making these movies, the crew and the troupe and everybody who works with me around this will tell you it doesn't always feel blissful. But what we do know is that we are working towards an expression of love. And so everybody digs in and we get to put out work like that, which I am so proud of. I am so proud of the work that we are producing here week in and week out because folks have stepped up here and do their love and come to me and say, this is the part of this I love to do. Let me do this. I got yelled at one week by Sandra D for not letting her do the makeup. People love doing what they love to do, even when it's not blissful. And when we do what we love to do, love wins because the work that comes out of it looks like that, looks like this, looks like the videos, the films. I want to stop calling them videos. We've really gone beyond videos at this point. The walls. This is what happens when we are, how love wins is with what is produced through the expression, not through sometimes how it feels. And so it's important for me to separate that out, to see the difference, because it's really easy, and I hear New Agers talk about this all the time, since it was such a hard obstacle, it must not have been meant to be. And that's never the case. Because our only job in life is to follow what we love, not follow our bliss. Bliss is a feeling. But follow what we love to express. So I get here on Friday morning about 6 a.m., and I didn't finish editing this thing until 2 p.m. Saturday, never leaving. Worked straight through, took lie down on the floor, took a little break, slept a little bit, got up, worked some more. There are people here who might think, oh my God, that's horrible. But it wasn't for me. I loved doing it. I loved it. And I always reach this point in the process when I'm editing one of these weak films where I'm going, oh no, it's not coming together. I should have gotten this shot and this shot. I missed this. I should have done this. If I'd done this differently, it would have been better. And then I have to stop myself and remember our teaching. But of course I have everything I need. Of course this is going to work out. I just need to calm down. Get a hold of myself, maybe take a little nap. And then go at it again. And sure enough, I go at it again. New ideas start percolating. New ways of putting together the story start coming together. And I realize I did capture everything I needed and put it together in a way that I had not anticipated to come up with a story that I cry at the end. It wells up in me. And that's what I'm looking for, creating something that wells up in me. And then hopefully it'll well up in others, that you'll get it. And the people who are writing me back on this from the listserv and on Facebook, people are blown away by this one. It's salient. It's what's going on in our country right now. I'm just so proud of all of us who are coming together to this expression of love that we all have to give. And it goes further than the films. It goes how we take it out into our lives. And I hear stories about how people are using this stuff in their lives and the changes that are occurring in their lives from what they're using, how they're applying this, like I did in the car on the way here today. Because when we take the time to remember who we truly are, when we take the time to remember that no matter what the circumstance, what we have within us is way larger than that. The power and the presence and the divine is within us every single moment to draw on, to remember, to bring forth and express. That's how love wins. And so, one of the things that happened this week, as I was looking at the talk title I picked a month ago, was I got reminded it was Black History Month. And I thought, okay, let's take a look at those folks in Black history where love won. Because the way I am speaking about love winning is how they express themselves in the world. And I found some amazing folks to talk about today. And I did not memorize it, because memory is not one of my strong points, as anybody who works here will tell you. And that's why this is up here, so I could remember these amazing folks that I looked up today. So we'll start with Rebecca Lee Crumpler, the first African-American woman to become a physician in America. She was born in 1831, was raised in a very poor Black neighborhood where medical care was like non-existent. She was raised in the North, not the South, so she was free. Between 1852 and 1860, she worked as a nurse, and because of the Civil War, there was such a dire need for doctors that the Medical Association finally let women become doctors for the very first time, and she was one of them, the first African-American woman to become a physician in America. She spent the rest of her days serving the minority population, mostly in Boston. She was and in her later years, she wrote 2 books that are still used today as the standard for serving the underserved population. That's quite something, huh? In that time period? Whew. She followed her bliss, love, bliss. I don't even like that word. She followed her love in expression. She didn't care how many people, I mean, what it must have been like to be the only black person at that medical university in those times when in the South, blacks were still slaves. In a time when blacks were still slaves, she became a physician. You can't do that unless you love what you're doing so much that you're willing to stand up to anything that's put in your face. You know, I know people who back off what they're doing because they didn't get enough applause or they didn't get enough kudos and appreciation. I mean, this woman got none, I am sure, until she started, serving in that black community. That takes a heart that's bigger than life. And that's how love wins. You see that? That's how love wins, when somebody stands up in the face of what must have felt like insurmountable odds. Not to her, she did it. All right, now we have Philip, Imagwali. I'm probably not saying that right, but I'll bet you it's close. It says here, the web owes much of its existence to this man. He was born to a poor family in Nigeria in 1954. It was a war-torn country at that point, so he couldn't keep in school because he was a war refugee and had to keep moving around. Even with all that going on, he found his way to the University of London, and later to the George Washington University, and later to the University of Maryland, and he got his doctorate at the University of Michigan. This is back in the 50s, early 60s, when things were really not all that great for African Americans in this country. Because he was from Nigeria, which is an oil-rich country, he has this idea for finding oil reserves, which the oil companies were really struggling with at that point. And his idea has to do with not needing a supercomputer to do it, because supercomputers were really expensive. So he comes up with a calculation that allows for smaller microprocessors to talk to each other, no matter where they are in the world. And so he goes about proving this by finding a computer at Los Alamos that they were trying to figure out how to calculate nuclear blast and the effects of nuclear blast. They built this multi-processor computer, had over 1,000 processors in it, that they just weren't using anymore because they gave up with the whole nuclear thing. Philip finds out about it, goes over there and says, hey, can I use your computer? Finally gets permission. And using 1,000 different processors from Michigan, even though all these processors are in California, he works out how to find oil reserves. So the first web application was set up by the oil companies, because as soon as they saw this worked, they invested millions to get this up and going, because it was still way cheaper than using a supercomputer. And they connected computers from around the world to find oil. And from that point, it was other people who said, I bet this has other applications, leading us to where we are today. This is the man who got it started. Black man from Nigeria. All right. Dr. Solomon Carter. Okay, let me get a little on his history first. Born in 1904. No, I'm sorry. He was born in Liberia in 1872 to the grandson of an American slave who had purchased his freedom and gone back to Africa. Fuller graduated Boston University Medical School and became the first black psychiatrist in America in 1902. But he's got this thing that's bugging him about this disease that a Dr. Alzheimer is working on in Germany. So he goes over to Germany to work with Dr. Alzheimer to try to figure out what is going on with these dementia patients who aren't like, there's something different about them than other dementia patients. And Dr. Alzheimer, he can't figure it out. He does. This is the man who actually discovered Alzheimer's disease. This is the man who did it. But it didn't get named after him. I wonder why. Instead, it gets named after Dr. Alzheimer. But this is the guy who actually went into enough people's cadavers' brains who just relentlessly kept looking and looking and looking until he found what the disease looks like, the plaque that's there, and that it is a separate disease that needs to be worked on from the point of view of the plaque. Dr. Fuller did that. Here's a quote from the Psychiatric Association's Office of Minority and National Affairs. This quote is very recent, even though this guy was all back in 1904 and 1907. Today, there are not that many black psychiatrists who are professors in medical schools. When you put his accomplishments into that context, he was way ahead of his time. This is what it means when we put forth love. This is what it means when what we do is go about following that which we are here to do, following that of who we have come here to be, following that which makes us who we are, that expression of God, that expression of love that can flow through us. All right, I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to jump to my favorite. Maggie Walker. In the years after the Civil War, Virginia was not an easy place to live. Maggie Walker was the daughter of ex-slaves, people who were slaves who were freed from the Civil War, and born in 1867, raised in poverty. She lived in an alleyway supported by wages from doing laundry. But she was a gifted student who graduated high school at 16, joined a charity organization called St. Luke's, and there established a newspaper, a printing press, an insurance company, and a college educational fund, all for African Americans. Back in the we're talking late 1800s, early 1900s, she did this. But here's what I love most. In 1903, she raised $9,400 to start the first black bank in America. That bank stayed solvent, loaning money to minorities for decades and decades. Through the Great Depression, when all the great banks went down, this one did not. Through the 2008 recession, this one did not. This one has been solid and solvent until they sold in 2009. They stood for helping out the black community. This woman started it. She went on to win the Nobel Prize for Peace. I think this is the one. I better have that right. Let me make sure I got that right. No, that's one of the others. One of the others on my list. Sorry. But she was an incredible, she lived into her late 80s, early 90s, and she held and was constantly, through all of it, a civil rights activist, held an executive position at the NAACP and the National Urban League until her death in 1934. She just lived what it is she came here to do. In a time when I'm sure people were saying, you can't have a black bank. You can't do that. In Virginia, the heart of the South, are you crazy? And she just said, yes, I can. Because this is what I came here to do. Now, do you think her route was blissful? I'm guessing the hardships she dealt with were overwhelming on some days. That she had to continually go back to what we teach here as the truth, which is that we have the power. We can do this. We were born with it. It's our birthright. You feel yourself getting down about something? Something's not working out so good? These folks went through way tougher stuff than most of us. So I was really glad to find out it was Black History Month. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to discover these folks. They helped me rise. You know, I love reading about people who rise because it inspires me. Let it inspire you. When you are feeling down, when things are not going so well, go to your computer or your phone or whatever and simply look up somebody who rose. Read a little bit about what they went through. What it does for me is it makes me start laughing at whatever it is I think is keeping me down. Because nothing can keep us down. Nothing. We have everything within us to rise. We have everything within us to continue to express the love that is ours to bring to life. We have everything within us to be that which we have come here to be. That's how love wins. The more we are who we have come here to be, the more love wins. That's how it works. That's how these people did it. That's how Gandhi did it. That's how Mother Teresa did it. Anybody who stood for who they have come here to be, love is winning. Don't ever think it's not. I don't care what the circumstance is. Don't ever think that whatever, something else can win. Because as long as there's folks like these folks, like us here, who are willing to stand in who we have come here to be, love wins. Thank you. I love you. All right. So now's the time where we pray for one of our own. Who's coming up? Come on. Is it time to get prayed on, to get lifted? Somebody here has got to want to be lifted by the power of the prayer that we have here. Come on, somebody.
I'll be lifted again.
Well, let's see if we can get somebody new. Is there anybody else who would like to be new? We have, come on. This is a real opportunity. I know you're shy, but don't miss out on feeling the love of the room. That's it. Come on down. I'll give you another shot. I just want to spread the love around. Come on, Patricia. All right, we need 8 to 10 folks up here. Oh, tell them why we're praying for you.
Because I'm negative about my getting well.
Oh. Well, we're going to know perfect health for you. Yes, we are. All right. So as we do here, let's start within our own hearts. Take a deep breath and relax. And know the truth for ourselves, that we are health. We are wholeness. Each of us. Know it within your own heart, your own health and well-being. And now feel that health and well-being from each person in this room. Feel the power and presence and knowing of health and well-being. And now let's know for Patricia that she is healthy. Send her that healing essence that is yours to send. Your knowing of health. Your knowing of well-being that is coursing through Patricia's veins in every cell of her body. She is healthy. She is whole. She is complete. Let us know this. Let us know that Patricia knows this, that she can feel it in her bones. The strength, the vitality of the universe flowing through Patricia as Patricia. And I am so grateful for the power, for the presence that we as a community are for each other, for the healing essence that we stand for each other. As we release this knowing it to be so. And so it is. All right. I love that we have this kind of power with each other. That we come together and share in this way. This knowingness that we are powerful and we can heal not just ourselves but each other. I love that. That's how love wins. All right. Take out what you're going to give. Hold it in your hand. I'm probably going to need that. This is energy. This is power. This is your expression of love in God. Do not fold it. Do not crumple it up. Unfold it. Hold it in your hand. Whether it's $1, $10, $100, deeds of property, diamonds, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is your expression of love in God. Do not fold it. Hold it open as we say together, God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am, and so it is.